Hello and welcome to Chapter 237 of the DC Alliance podcast. With me, as always, is Joker. Joe,
That's right. I'm here.
how you doing today?
I looked up and I saw that. I'm like, screw it, grab it.
You're going for it. You're going for it. For the non-video listeners, Joe slid out of frame and then slid into frame wearing the original Joker comic face.
So I think I got this back. Oh, during Joker's 80th anniversary, at one of the free comic book day things. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had it hanging up on my shelf there for a second. No, I'm doing good. It's been a long week, long day. I mowed right after work because I'm gonna be stupid busy all weekend. I didn't have to mow over the weekend, but yeah, I'm just a tired boy. How are you doing, Travis?
I'm the same, Joe. I'm a tired boy as well. A few later nights for me. Last night was a little bit later too. I joined Chris and Marvel Alliance talking about Agatha all along. So that was an interesting convo. And then to go from that to watching this, also interesting. I'm excited to talk to you about Joker 2.
Joker Folie.
I'm just going to continue to call it Joker 2, although Folie is part of the whole thing. I think it's a joint delusion, two people having the same delusion, so or
we'll
something
get into
like
it.
that.
We'll get into it. Well, what does Folie mean? Hold on, let's check
I think
it
that's what it means. So yeah, I'm excited for the weekend. It's not a long weekend, but next weekend is a long weekend. Listeners, we won't be live next weekend because it's Canadian Thanksgiving. We will get you an episode out reviewing the most recent Penguin episode that's going to drop on Sunday, of course, and maybe we'll talk about a bit of news as well. Hopefully a Green Lantern has been cast by then. I think they're screen testing now. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool. And I'm excited for the Penguin. And before we get into the Joker, obviously, let me get the network plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance with 7 shows in total. On Mondays, bi-weekly is Ranger Alliance. On Tuesdays is a walk through the multiverse. On Wednesdays is the Animation Nation. On Thursdays is Star Wars Alliance. On Fridays is Marvel Alliance. On Saturdays is DC Alliance. And Sundays monthly is World's Finest True Believers, or well, Sundays monthly used to be World's Finest True Believers. That's going to have its last episode this coming Sunday. I want to congratulate Chris on 100 episodes. That's no easy feat, and especially with the level of preparation and care he put into each episode. I know he took quite a bit of time researching, and some of those creator spotlights were illuminating. The questions were interesting. The tangents that they went on, the massive verse that you were part of him for an episode, that was super cool as well. And I especially want to thank him for allowing me to come on and talk about one of my favorite comic series, Injustice. We went through all 5 years, and that was very enjoyable. But even more than that, I was exposed to countless comics that either were low on my list or I never would have gotten around to reading. And because of that podcast, I went and checked them out either before or after the episodes. So big shout out to Chris there. It's very impressive. And hopefully one day, like I told him last night, maybe he pulls a Robert Downey Jr. and comes back as Dr. Doom.
I was on there multiple times too. I think we covered either the first 3 or first 4 volumes of Lock and Key. I think about it only the first 3. But no, I know we also covered Marvel vs. DC and Claws. I've been on there a lot. Chris did an amazing job with that show. So I'm happy that he's going out on his own terms, and it's not like he just got he got fed up with it and just said he's sorry. But yeah, it's good for him. That show will be missed. It's an amazing show. Backlog is still up on the Geekverse YouTube or the Geek Ultimate Alliance channel. So if you guys ever check it out, go check it out.
Yes, there's a lot there, and it's pretty much timeless. So check it out anytime.
Yeah.
We also all three shows go live on the Geekverse YouTube channel. Star Wars Alliance goes live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Marvel Alliance goes live Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we go live Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All three of those shows also have their own podcast feeds. Search DC Alliance, Marvel Alliance, and Star Wars Alliance if you just want DC content, Marvel content, or Star Wars content only. But if you want all 7 shows on the GUI Podcast Network, stay subscribed to the GUI on your podcast app of choice. We also have a Patreon, 2 tiers, a $1 tier, and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is basically a tip jar, like what we're doing. You want to help us out any way you can. And the $5 tier is where you get your extras. You get your ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon exclusive episodes. Myself and Joe are going through all the DC films through the years. The Dark Knight was our most recent entry for September. We have, I think, Watchmen on deck for October.
Double checking real quick, and that would be
my memory is making me think that.
Why am I not finding it? You're probably right.
So we also have the Marvel Alliance guys, Chris and Brent, doing their Tales from the House of X, X2, their favorite Fox Marvel films. X2 was the most recent one. I think they have 2 more left, Days of First Class and Days of Future Past. They also have their Infinity Saga backlog on for the patrons there, covering the entire Infinity Saga. We have Joe's Multiverse Minutes, so right now he's doing his Disney deep dives, taking a look at Disney film, not just reviewing it, but giving you some tidbits and behind the scenes info about it. And now also we're into his 30 plus days of Halloween. Boom. Actually, didn't butcher the title for a change.
I appreciate that.
Right back at you, buddy. So yeah, Joe posts reviews for Halloween films, some horror, some just Halloween, and everything in between. Joe, we're started already, so let us know what are a few of the titles that have already been posted.
Yeah, sure. This week in particular, I'm doing the X franchise, so X, Pearl, and Maxine. Maxine will be coming out tomorrow. But I also started the Friday 13th. I've got the first 2 of those that came out. I talked about Gerald's Game, the Stephen King book turned Netflix original movie. And today's episode was a movie called Pay the Ghost, starring Nicolas Cage.
Oh.
It's supposed to be a supernatural movie, and I say supposed to because they didn't really do a great job on the supernatural part. But it is a Halloween movie, so that's why it was on there.
That's the main thing. So we thank everyone that's a patron. If you're not a patron, if you take a quick 30 to 60 second break and view the podcast on your podcast app of choice, it's always greatly appreciated. It helps other people find the shows, and that's always a good thing. Okay, Joe, before we get into that, hey, Iggy in the chat. And he says, Geekverse people are blaming James Gunn for the failure of the Joker. That shouldn't be at all. This operated in the Elseworlds banner, and because of the $1 billion that it made before in the first one, I think they had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted in this one. So,
but it's also yes and no. At the same time, though, like just because Gunn is the head, this movie was this movie approved? No, this movie was already approved when he got the job. So like.
Yeah, same thing as the first one was made before
he was even there. So I don't want to say that. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was his fault.
No,
because I'm not. I mean, it wasn't. He has nothing. I think he even tweeted out today, like, I gave a few notes, but it was all Phillips. This was his thing. So people just like to be angry because people are stupid.
Yeah, and it's not where it's just those people already don't like James Gunn and are going to use anything to throw at him.
Correct.
If there's a movie in the DCU that isn't successful, James Gunn does get blamed. Even if he's not a director, he gets partly blamed because he is the steward of the universe. No different than Kevin Feige, but that is not what this is. This is an Elseworlds banner. No different than if Constantine still comes out and it's an absolute failure, that doesn't fall on James Gunn at all, because again, that's in the Elseworlds banner, and he can't keep track of everybody's scripts if he's doing the other. He can't keep track of the Elseworlds. That got to exist on its own. You just got to prove the idea.
Well, yeah, but they will blame him because it got approved while he was the head. I mean, it was talked about years ago.
Yeah,
and then it's apparently been in the works for the last decade. So I don't know.
Anyway,
people will find reason to blame James Gunn for everything.
Pretty much. I'm excited for what he has to come for us. So, Joe, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Joker 2. Let's get into the spoiler-free thoughts before we take an ad break and get into the meat and potatoes of this.
Sure. So my favorite thing about this movie was getting the Terrifier 3 soda cup before the movie started.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That's it. No,
that makes
okay,
sense. That's right.
No. Okay, so let me say it this way. While this movie was not something, I had high expectations for this, and that's my own fault coming off of the success of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
What this movie did, I didn't like. And I'm not gonna say I didn't like, because there were things in this I did like. Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix, their chemistry worked for me.
Yep.
Both their characters worked for me. The story did not work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still enjoyed myself. Like, it's not something I'm gonna go probably rush out to see again, but I might watch it again when it comes out on streaming, if that means anything. That being said, though, like I did enjoy parts of it. I don't want to burn down the whole movie because I didn't like, start to finish. There were parts in this I liked.
I agree there too. There were parts in this that I liked, but I feel like some of those parts were undercut or jumped away from immediately into these musical numbers that didn't move the storyline at all. They were just musical numbers for the sake of being musical numbers, which infuriated me, and that's like half the movie. And
well, so,
you're just like, because there's some interesting stuff. You're right about this. There's some interesting stuff in here, especially some of the courtroom stuff. It's very interesting. But
you also have to figure, though, the movie's called Folie, Deux, which, like you had said in the beginning, it is a shared delusion between two people. So these two, the delusional part of this movie is all of the singing parts. Literally all the musical scenes, with the exception of like two, are the Folie, Deux. So
yes, but normally they don't and even like your standard musical, they aren't actually like, some of them aren't actually happening, but they do like add to the plot and move. Some of these were just like musical numbers for the sake of being musical numbers. Like they didn't do anything for me. Like, why would you jump out of this tense moment into this song? I know you're trying to show Arthur's mental, but pick another. It's just, we'll get into it. I might be.
I'm trying to
spoiler ban off here.
So I'm going to try to play devil's advocate here, because
let me just
as best as I can.
I didn't enjoy the first film a whole lot, but I can understand that was a good movie.
Okay.
It just wasn't my taste. This film I didn't enjoy, but I also know is not a good movie. So there's elements in here that are good and enjoyable, but overall, I feel like the story is muddled. I feel like it does nothing to enhance the first film. It more takes away from that, like the uniqueness and specialness of the first film. People are complaining about the ending and that. I honestly found that a bit more inspired, to be honest with you. And they did lay some seeds of that if you were paying attention in the movie part in here. We'll get into that when we rip out the spoiler band-aid. But I enjoyed some of this, but I find that the musical parts really ripped me out. And I knew it was musical going in, and one of the first couple I really enjoyed. There's an animation one that I thought was fantastic, and there's the first musical number with Gaga and Phoenix. I really enjoyed the first big one, and I thought that added story.
Which one was that one?
The one where they're climbing the fence.
Oh, right after, and we saw this in the trailer where she burnt down the piano.
That added to the story for me a little bit. The other ones I didn't. So yeah, we'll get into that now. But first, obviously, we'll take our ad break. Listeners, we're an ad support network. We're gonna pick the ads or volume. We're gonna do a quick 3 count to adjust your volume, and we'll be back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Okay, Joe, let's get into this film now. And like I said earlier, the film starts off with an animated sequence, and you allude to not enjoying this as much as me. What do you think about this?
This was weird. like, and again, going into this after the first movie, my expectations were like, okay, it's going to be another very like psychological, crazy movie. We're going to see the inner workings of Arthur Fleck's mind in this, and we open with the cartoon, and I'm like, oh, okay. I understand what they're trying to do. They're the mood that they were setting here was not the mood that I was expecting, and I think that's what threw me for a loop right there in the beginning.
I'll agree. It was out of nowhere. I did enjoy the animation style.
It was cute. It was fun. But
reminded me a little bit of the old school Superman. And it wasn't like it was just weird at times. Like you had people singing his number and TV show, and like you get policemen there beat him up. Although we do see that.
I didn't talk about those guys running.
And then we flash to Arthur Fleck, who's in custody at Arkham State Hospital, awaiting his trial for the 5 murders that they know about from 2 years ago.
Not a lot of people know, but it was 6.
There was 6. A few people know by the end of this film, but Joe's right. Joe's right. not a lot of people know at the start. And he has a lawyer, Mary Ann Stewart, that wants to argue that he essentially has dissociative identity disorder, and that the Joker is his own personality.
Split personality, yeah.
What do you think about this decision for the council, and did you think that he was going to go along with that?
I think he just wants to get the attention. Yeah, I think he was going along with it for the entire time. And it makes sense. And even when they do have the trial, he is like, the questions are being asked by the lawyer, not much by him, but by the lawyer, about his 2 personalities.
Yep.
And it was actually in his favor. Like, she actually was. She could have won the case for him.
She was doing a great job.
She was doing a great job
for her circumstances and what he's done before. Like, and he did some things to like even help her. And then she did a great job cross-examining the person who only checked him for 89 minutes.
Yep, instead of about 2 hours. Yeah, it was 89 minutes. But no, like it wasn't until he first saw Lee, i.e. Harley Quinzel, that Harleen Quinzel, sorry, that that's when his, like, you could tell his personality changed.
Pep came back in a step.
Yeah,
because he was a pretty big slub before that. For the first
so I think he would have just went along with what the lawyer said. Like, he was content with being in prison and just living out the rest of his life.
But he gets taken after the lawyer to a musical therapy session, and that's where he meets Harley Lee Quinzel. Her name is Lee in this.
Yep.
And she and Arthur hit it off. The cop, the
guard,
correctional officer,
that
takes Arthur there, gets caught up in singing. He likes to sing. He sings a few times in this movie, and he goes off and chats with Harleen. And I'm like, I honestly, there's so many moments in this film that I'm like, is this actually happening, or is it in his head? I'm like, are you really that avant-garde? You're gonna let this 5-time murder, like this person who killed 5 people and the biggest criminal and like internet, like, just not even pay attention to him as he's that was.
But he was paying attention to him though, because he was in eyesight the entire time.
Yes, yeah.
But I was right there with you. Like, in my head, and because of the first one, I'm like, okay, is he actually is Lee actually here? Is she actually, will she actually interact with other people? And then we really don't see her with anybody else until the actual trial, and then she's like all up in the one lawyer's face. So like, it kind of became apparent, not quick, but it became apparent that, okay, no, she is real.
Yeah, and she confides in Arthur that she grew up in the same neighborhood he did, and she had an abusive father who died in a car crash. She makes a joke, knock, who's there? Your dad died in a car crash, and Arthur laughs at it. And
not great knockdown joke, but okay.
But then he apologizes too, and that made me think too. Like, there's a little bit of remorse in this character still.
Yeah.
So,
which leads to being there's Arthur and there's Joker.
Yeah. And she said that she burned down her parents' apartment because they were abusive, and she basically expresses that she's one of his biggest fans, uh, and saw what he did on Murray's show, and saw the TV movie about him 20 times, and he did was like, "There's a movie made about me." They wouldn't let me go
No, no.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, he knew about the movie.
yeah.
They wouldn't allow him to see
He
it.
was like, "Was it any good?" And she was
Yeah.
like, "It was amazing." So, yeah, I did enjoy the meeting between the two, and then we flash to, and this is where I wanted to stop for a second because there's a film screening uh, for all the inmates, and here's where we see uh, the character that we get in the towards the end of the movie. This young patient, he's looking at Arthur from the back of the like the whole load of people in the rows. He's looking at Arthur. You see him for about, I don't know, between five-ish seconds. You see him staring at Arthur, and he comes back to play in the end of the movie, and that's why I think it's a
Yeah.
nice little placement here because you can see him. He looks like he's obsessing, essentially.
Well, and he is. You see him throughout. Like
Yeah,
when we see the prison or the correctional facility throughout the movie, they're watching the trial. Like everybody's watching it. Everybody has like, I don't want to say infatuation, but it's
they're all
it's somebody.
rooting for him.
Yeah, somebody they know. They're literally there with him.
Yeah.
And this character in particular, they show him every single time they go back to the correctional facility.
hmm And yeah, he'll come into play, but I do like the placement there, and it makes sense for me a little bit. Yeah, so during that, Arthur and Harleen chat for a while, and then they try to escape after a big
Well,
musical number. And this is my favorite musical number of this entire film.
you say try to escape. I don't think they were actually trying to escape.
Well, no, okay, yeah, because they don't
Because
really try
so
to climb up the fence; they just stay there and then
yeah,
take it
just
down.
do a thing. But
But
this you're right. This musical number is pretty good.
it moves
This
along the
comes
story.
after Harley or Lee sets fire to the piano,
hmm
which causes an evacuation
to get out of there.
Yeah, but yeah, then they
Yep.
have the musical number. They're running around the outskirts, which, and again, like I get it. They only went and grabbed them because the guards thought they were trying to escape.
hmm
When they jumped up on the gate and just kind of stayed there while they were singing.
Yeah, and again, I like that. I moved it along a little bit, and he gets thrown in solitary confinement for 2 weeks because of that. And this is another part where I question if she was real or not because she says, "The guard let me in," and I'm like,
Yes.
"What did they let you
What?
in though?"
Yeah. Why?
And to she don't you don't lie, Joe.
I mean, look.
So
Well, but she also was telling him that she was getting out. Like
yeah,
they said they told her that he is a bad influence on her.
it's not her. Yeah, and he's a little shocked, but yeah. So they get it on, and she promises to be there at his trial. She's like, "It's a good thing that I'm getting out. I can attend your trial all every day now." And then she puts the Joker makeup on him. So I like that. What do you think about that?
But that's another scene where she only sees him as Joker.
Yeah.
That's why she wanted to put the makeup on him. She
hmm
doesn't. I'm not saying she doesn't like Arthur, but she doesn't. She wants Joker to come out.
Her infatuations with the Joker hit
Yes.
that side of his personality.
And I mean, he was all for it. This was somebody who was giving him attention, somebody who was giving him affection,
Yeah.
and that's something he wants. He
Yeah.
wants.
Well, especially when you listen to I can't remember her name again, her character's name, but Zazie Beetz' character on the stand talking
Yes.
about what Arthur's mother said to him. So
Yeah, I actually was like because I hadn't heard literally anything about her character showing up. Sophie, I
mhm,
think. Yeah, Sophie.
yeah.
I was happy to see her show up.
Same. And I liked her explanation and her reasoning for like why
Not
she was
being around,
limited.
yeah.
Yeah, limited. It all worked. We'll get into that in a little bit here. Uh, yeah. So a television personality, Patty Myers, comes to interview Arthur, and Arthur's essentially he's pretty kooky. He's saying that he's in love now, and yeah, it's a good back and forth. What do you think about this interview, Joe, with his lawyer present?
So at this point in time, I was, especially when he starts breaking out in song, I'm like, okay, so is he having another like mental whatever? But then when we get because it's, I guess it's live, which I don't know why it was live, but okay. When we see Lee, she's out on the street, she sees him singing, and then she obviously falls more in love with him, or he falls in love with her. I don't know. She breaks the glass and steals the TV, which is kind of fun. The scene altogether was interesting. It Patty was definitely baiting Arthur to get Joker to come out.
Yeah.
And it kind of did. He got to a point where it was like, you're just like
Murray,
like you don't care about me. You just want
sensationalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting scene. Yeah. Like it was fine.
And then we get at the trial, we get our first in-person look at Harvey Dent, who's calling witnesses.
Can I say the nothing against the actor? The man's got a big head.
I did notice that as well. I did enjoy his performance, but
he was a good Harvey.
He was.
But just a big head and tiny neck. Or maybe it's a long neck. I don't know.
He's calling witnesses to dismiss Arthur's claims that he's insane.
Split personality. That there's two.
Well, he's trying to get off because of insanity. Essentially,
yeah.
Is the plea legal plea? And then the reason why you're insane is the dissociative personality, the personality disorder.
Yeah.
So after they take a break, and then that's when his lawyer reveals that Lee was actually a psychiatry student who grew up with money on the Upper East Side, and her father was a doctor who's alive, and she lives with her parents. She voluntarily committed herself to Arkham.
Yep.
And she can check herself out so she can come and go as she please.
Now,
this is never did burn down the apartment building.
This is also after, like, Arthur tells Marianne, his lawyer, like, can you try and get Lee a better seat, get a closer seat? And also, this is after Lee confronts Marianne and it's like, look, you're not doing him any favors. He, like, the people out there want to see Joker, and you're trying to stifle it.
Yeah.
So
it made me feel more like she just wanted to cash in on the Joker name and the whole mystique of Joker, rather than care about what happens to
Arthur.
So
yeah, it definitely. But let's be honest, she's a defense attorney. Like,
yeah,
and I'm assuming that was giving to him, not like her. That was not his personal lawyer.
And we'll say what you want about Lee. When Arthur confronts her, she immediately is like, yeah, I wanted to tell you some lies. She said, doesn't everybody lie a little? Then she was like, I told you that stuff because I wanted to get close to you. I didn't think you'd have any interest in me, who hasn't accomplished anything, if I just wrote to you or something. And yeah, I did enjoy that she immediately did that, but then I was up on my edge again when she was like, I'm pregnant.
Right?
And I'm like, how would you know that happened like yesterday? Really, it happened 2 weeks ago, but still.
Well, no, it probably only happened like...
It might have happened the first day of solitary confinement.
No, I think that was toward the end of the solitary.
He spent 2 weeks there, so I'm not sure.
So it also could have been... it also could have been another lie. Like, we also don't know how long it's been either.
I assume when we got to a point at the end of the film that she was going to tell him differently.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
But we don't know because she never said yes or no to it.
Yeah, and she told him she was pregnant, and she's moved into his old apartment and wants to build a home for him. He's like, I don't want to live in that apartment.
Yeah.
Just because, his old apartment, he has no ties to it.
Yeah, that's also, he's got some bad memories because it's where his mom lived with him. So, and it's where he kind of broke into Sophie's apartment, and yeah. Anyway,
and so we go to the next day at the trial, and this is where things really start to heat up, Joe.
And I'll be honest, this is where I'm like, okay, now I'm liking what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this point, I'm not saying it was boring to me, but I wasn't latching onto the story. Like, it wasn't grabbing me. And again, I love Lady Gaga. I love Joaquin Phoenix. Their chemistry is great. The musicals, I love musicals, so I was vibing with what they were doing, but it wasn't grabbing my attention.
No.
Right here, this is when like it shifted, and I'm like, okay, let's see what I like this. Let's see what's going. Go from here.
And we actually get one of my favorite interactions of the whole film that I'll get into after we take our potentially final ad break of the evening. Listeners, we're an ad support network. We don't pick the ad or the volume. I'm going to give you a quick 3 count to adjust your volume, and we'll be right back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Okay, Joe. Like I said, this is where things really pick up. Arthur starts to like represent himself. He's going to be his own lawyer.
Yeah,
And
he dismissed Marianne because
he buys
basically,
into Harley, what Harley's saying more
yeah,
than what Marianne's saying, which is not great for Arthur.
nope.
And yeah, so who's up next for Arthur to like who's the defense calling? Or sorry, who's the prosecution calling? It's Gary Puddles, the old uh, former person that colleague that worked with him, and this is a great back and forth here. Gary is very scared, just super scared. He has to go into hiding because they were afraid Joker would come and kill him or have him killed. And his testimony seems like it really, really shakes Arthur by the end.
Yeah,
He's like, no more questions. I said no more questions because Gary's like, why would you do that, Arthur? You were always nice to me. And I'm just thinking like, dude, he basically made your life easier. He didn't kill you two, but he killed the bullies that were
but
basically making your life miserable.
he also made him scared.
Oh yeah, and he said he haven't been able to sleep right since.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Gary is very scared in this, and he does a great job. The actor does a great job in this scene. Like I felt the emotion. This is one of my favorite scenes in this film.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Really tense. And then the Zazie Beetz character Sophie.
I believe that was before Puddle.
Yeah,
I think
you're right. You're right.
It was also before he fired Marianne, because she was the one that I was asking him about, or asking her about something about like
it was after because he didn't ask her any questions, so it was after Sophie was done with the questioning, but before Puddles.
Yeah, because when she was talking about what Arthur's mom said, that's what like clicked in him.
Yeah.
And then we get the one little musical. Terrible. We get the musical little interlude of him taking a chair to Harvey Dent, and then the mallet to the judge.
Yeah, and it like I felt for Arthur a little bit there, hearing everything that happened to him, and then the way his mother would talk about him to random strangers and just neighbors and stuff. You're like, damn, like you're ruthless, and yeah, it just makes sense what happened to him a little bit. But I enjoyed those two pieces of the trial. I thought those were the most interesting to me, Joe, and especially like I said, when at the end Gary makes that plea to him and Arthur's really shaken up. He's like, no defense, no. And this at this point, prosecution's like, no, we rest our case. We're good. And he does the same thing, and then Arthur's brought back to Arkham, and he gets
there's a moment here, I want to say, I can't remember exactly what. It might have been after. I think it might have been when he was cross-examining Gary, where he goes off on everybody. And we do see it in the trailer. And he's like, it doesn't matter what any of you all say. It doesn't matter what the guards, the fat guards at the correctional facility says. Doesn't matter what all the people on the street said. Like, I am free from all of your judgment. I'm free from all that. And because the guards were watching, they're not so like happy-go-lucky with him like they used to be when he shows up.
No, they're not at all. They're pretty pissed, Joe. They're very pissed. Pretty pissed is me putting it kindly. And the other thing I want to say is he goes into a Cockney accent, just like when he killed the people next to Puddles when he's questioning him. And every time he acts really Jokerish, you can see Lee in the front just completely
huge
smiling,
smile on her
ear
face.
to ear, just loving
Yep.
it. Like you like going back to you said about wanting the Joker character, not the Arthur character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these were enjoyable. This part was not for Arthur because they bring him into the bathroom and essentially rape him.
I see. I don't think they actually raped him. They're just like they're beating him.
He's like, "Why don't you buy me a
drink first?" Yeah,
that's what I took.
Maybe they did. I didn't take it that way. But the thing that comes up next is when they throw him in a cell, and one of the other inmates, Ricky, I think his name was the kid, who kind of became I don't say a lackey of Arthur, but like he was infatuated with him for the most part.
Arthur was friendly with him too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ricky kept on mouthing off to the head guard,
singing the song that pisses him off,
which is the song that he whistles constantly, but whatever. But yeah, he ends up strangling the prisoner to death.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh shit.
And at the same time, that makes Arthur like think about his first kills as Joker.
Yeah.
And we get see this in flashback. You see him like taking off the makeup like with no emotion.
Yeah.
So we go into the courthouse the next day, like the last day, and we get closing arguments. And this is pretty cool. Arthur grabs a stool, pulls up, and sits down right next to.
I do like
the jurors.
I do like the judge is like,
yeah.
Just to remind you, this is not
comedy
club.
Yeah, that's a nice
which is a great scene because Arthur gives him like a side eye.
Yeah. It's like,
and I'm like, whoo. Okay.
And here is where Arthur renounces the Joker persona.
Dude, and as soon as he does that, Lee
he storms
like,
out.
Yep.
And the jury finds Arthur guilty of all the charges. And as they're reading him out, as they're just about to read out the verdict, a car bomb explodes, killing a whole load of people and injuring a lot of people. It looks, I barely could see it, but it looks like Harvey Dent's face is scarred on the right side.
I was trying to catch that too. I don't think it was fully scarred. I think it just had like
it was
some
like burn face, but it looked like it was like cut and there was blood coming out. So, yeah. And he's just knocked out. And in the chaos, two people dressed up as Joker. One person dressed up as Joker helps him escape, and then gets into a car, and then another person dressed up as Joker drives him out of there.
Yeah, Arthur just kind of is wandering out of the hole, and these two Joker individuals grab him. Mm-hmm. And as he's in the back seat, he realizes, no, these guys don't care about me. They care about the Joker. They're infatuated with the Joker. And so he escapes. He at a stoplight, he gets out of the car and just goes running.
And the cops notice him immediately, but they end up taking out the two other Jokers. What hits one with the car. And Arthur just is wandering through Gotham and finds Lee outside his old apartment. On the stairs?
On the stairs.
On the stairs. And they have a chat, but she rejects him, Joe, for renouncing Joker.
Yeah.
And admits that the pregnancy was a lie.
No, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't say it was a lie. He asks, and she
note that has it there that okay. Nope. Okay.
She doesn't lie. She doesn't say anything. He asked if the pregnancy was real, and she stares at him, says goodbye, and walks away. She doesn't actually. Yeah, the notes. Nothing against the notes, but I question some of these. I don't know who wrote them, but So, which is again, I find that interesting because was she telling the truth? Was it another lie? Like, what is?
I feel like it was a lie just because of how quick and how would she like. It felt a little quick and like the things she was using to try to make sure that he wouldn't bail out from her.
Exactly.
So that's why I thought that. And then he's devastated. He's like, I can't go on without you. And she's like, yeah, no, sorry. And the police get him immediately after that and bring him back to Arkham.
So because we're essentially at the very end.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about is all of the musical interludes.
Numbers. Yeah.
And they were all basically the delusions of these two together.
Too. There were not many original pieces.
Correct. There was a few different ones. There was one scene where they're on a like a talk show together, like a little comedy thing.
It looked like the Cher show. Say Cher and
right,
Sonny
exactly.
Yeah.
And you see it in the commercials. It's the let's give the people what they want line. And so because they're singing, and then like she is singing more to the crowd, and he's just like, why aren't you singing to me? Give the people what they want. And so he goes to start singing again, and she pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, this is all in the musical. This is all delusional.
The musical delusion.
And so while he's just like, okay, what you doing? This is fun, right? And then she shoots him. That's earlier on in the scene. So we're like, okay, this is weird. There's another one where they're getting married.
Yeah.
There
another one where they're dancing on top of rooftops.
Dancing on the rooftop. There's one in the courthouse that we talked about earlier. And then now this was in the trailer, but not in the movie.
Yeah.
Something that was cut where they're dancing out of the courthouse onto the stairs.
I feel like they cut some of her scenes because I feel like I thought she was going to be a bigger part of this film.
I mean, she was still a very significant part. Not
I know.
Huge.
I just feel like there was more there on her meat on the bone with her.
Sure,
but this was a long 2-hour film anyway.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Yeah. So there was a couple of we talked about these before we started talking about the film too, the musical numbers, because there was a couple that I enjoyed, but not a lot of them. A lot of them were just I'd rather the scene that we jumped out of instead of going out of that and then taking some of the tension away from it.
Well, and I bring this up because just before the closing arguments or the verdict was read, he is on the phone. He calls her up and he starts singing to her there. So this is the second moment that I can see where it was actually singing in real world, life, not in his delusional world.
Yeah.
But and while
she just listens to it and doesn't pick up.
She's not picking up because what she's doing is taking the gun to her head. So this also makes me wonder if that was actually her on the stairs.
Ooh, yes. I didn't think about that, Joe. That is because an interesting point of view.
She doesn't we don't see her pull the trigger.
No.
But she's got a shorter haircut at this time. She is very dismissive of him, which is ultimately, by this point in time, he realizes that everybody wants the Joker, and he just announced the Joker. Yeah. So why wouldn't he think that she would be the same way? She walked out on him when he said it. So I could also see this being not really her, because she had killed herself in the apartment.
The last scene of her, not really her. That is definitely a possibility. I'm sure that I didn't even think about that though, Joe, because of them happening after. That makes
correct. So who knows?
But she is completely disheveled compared to what she looked like for the rest of the movie, and there is no scene of her getting like that. Maybe there is more to that scene where she instead of doing what we think she might do,
she cuts her hair and just goes like whatever. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, maybe in the deleted scenes. And finally, the next day after Arthur's back in Arkham, we get him walking up the hall. He got a visitor, and
he was told he has a visitor.
Yeah, the guard was taking him, and then the guard just kept going on, and another inmate, a young inmate, come up and wanted to tell him a joke. Arthur stopped to listen, and the joke was stabby, stabby, stab.
I wish you would have said your punchline is a little weak.
Yeah, he was like, I can't remember the joke now, to be honest with you.
It was a psychopath going into a bar, and I don't remember the whole joke, but
like what he deserves or something. And
that's what that's what I'm like. Yeah, your punchline, you can work on your punchline a little bit, but he shanks him in the stomach, and he goes falling to the ground.
And while this is happening, the patient goes and sits down and starts laughing.
Yeah. And so he's in the background while we are focusing on Arthur on the ground bleeding out, and we see him we see how he got his scars. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So do you think that this was something like the guards were on this?
I think so because of what happened.
Yeah, I think so. I agree because the guard was leading him on. Like I don't think he actually had a visitor, but
no,
the guard was like, "Come on, Arthur, come on," and he's already around the corner. So yeah, so maybe we actually got the Joker at the very end.
Maybe this is the real, or maybe this is someone that was inspired by the Joker from Arthur, not Arthur himself. And that's ultimately Arthur realized that everyone wanted the Joker, not him. Joker was a way for him to escape in the first film, but now it seems like his prison.
So this is another scene that I really, really enjoyed because while he's bleeding out, we flash back to the delusion of Harley and him after Harley shot him.
Yeah.
And the way he's looking, the way the light is on him, it looks like his eye is like either darkened or bloody on the one side while the other one is in the light. And just the way that he is, I think he's singing at this point. I can't remember, but the way he's talking and doing something, like, it looked great in my opinion. I thought it looked really good. It looked really cool.
I thought there was a lot of fantastic visuals in this, like the riots, the explosion was great, the chaos afterwards that all looked like real, not CGI.
Yeah,
which I appreciate too. Like there was some great things about this, but for that the story was so muddled, Joe. It was
it's one of those things where the story didn't make a ton of sense just so they can shoehorn in a ton of musical numbers.
Yes. I'd rather some more, like, you might be able to do something if you didn't have any musical numbers and you had more meat on the bone in the story.
But this is also, I've seen a ton of people online basically trying to shit on this movie, and I mean, I can understand your sentiment, but at the same time, Todd Phillips did something different here. He had a $1 billion property that's like, hey, you guys want me to make more? I'm not saying he didn't want to, but he obviously thought this story was good enough.
He's fine with whatever happens with this.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
And I'm not going to tweet like that I hate it over and over again. I'm going to move on to the next film. It's been a while since we reviewed the film. A film, I think Aquaman was the last film we reviewed, Joe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been like over a year. So yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, as much as so for me, like I have said on numerous podcasts that there are a million little things that I enjoyed in Rise of Skywalker, the final Star Wars movie, but I do not like the Rise of Skywalker.
Yep, that's fine.
Similar thing here. There's a lot of things I liked in this movie, but I didn't like this movie.
Yeah,
and that's not indicative of the movie. Like, it did not speak to me. But there are people out there that did enjoy it and really liked it. I'm not.
And I had that feeling it was going to happen for me because I didn't enjoy the first film.
So there you go.
I went back and revisited it, but I knew that was a good film. Like, I can't give that a bad score. I knew that was a good film. This here is not a great film for me, and I would probably give it, if we're giving it anything out of 10, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10. If I'm that's probably where it would land for me.
I would do like a 4 or 5. Like, it's a movie I'd watch again, but it's not high on my priority list.
No,
but at the same time,
Deadpool and Wolverine another watch before this.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go online and try to, like you had said, I'm not gonna be hating on it on social media. I'll be like, all right, cool, I'm fine. I watched it. I'm gonna move on.
I'm glad it was made. My only hope is that this isn't a reason for less Elseworld projects. I want to get Constantine too. There's some things I want to talk about with this before we end off, Joe. Joker 2 opened with a $7 million domestic previews for Thursdays, almost 50% less than the first film previews. It might only earn 50 million its domestic opening weekend. Budget was 200 million compared to the 50 million it was for the first film.
So does that mean they have to make at least like 700 to make a profit?
Yes, and I do think that there's this might be another joint venture because the first film they didn't get all the money from that. Warner Brothers wasn't confident in the first film, so they partnered with a distributor and split 50-50, so 25 million each. So they got 50-50 in the box office return. So they didn't get everything like you would hope. So
okay.
Yeah, and Luis Fernando, who's like the king of the box office for me, he had a tweet out, rather than a happy face Joker Folie Deux, will put a major shocker at US box office this weekend. Joker grossed $7 million on Thursday previews, but started at 3 p.m. plus Monday early PFL screenings in US box office versus The Flash's 9.7 million for Monday and Thursday previews. A far cry below 2019's Joker, 13.3 million in pure Thursday previews alone. Versus the Marvel 6.6 million, Dial of Destiny 7.2, Black Adam 7.6, Fast X 7.5, Shazam's 5.9, Sonic 6.3, and Detective Pikachu and Morbius is 5.7. So a $48 to $53 million 3-day opening weekend could be in the cards. What would be almost half less than the original made same opening weekend back in 2019.
Ugh.
Not great, Joe.
Yeah, but 2019 was a different time. Like the movies that were coming out back then, pre-pandemic, people were going to theaters more. People aren't going to theaters as much as they used to. But I mean, I should rephrase that. A good movie will bring people to the theaters. Deadpool, Wolverine, you mentioned earlier, that got people to theaters.
And
not saying it was a movie, but
here it says another thing important to add to the tweet above. During the Thursday previews at US box office, Joker Folie Deux received a 0.5 star from audiences on post track, with only 40% of them saying they could recommend the film. Not even Megalopolis got that low.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah,
so I will say I was asked once today at work, and I did suggest to the guy, I'm like, because he really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's my expectations were higher than they should have been. So I thought it was a fine movie, which I still do. It's not a great movie. It's a fine movie. As much as I said I didn't like it, like I said, there's still other things in there I did like. But I'm like, you can just wait till streaming. Like you won't, it won't hurt you.
100% agree with you there.
Yeah.
It's there's no, and the people saying like some people spoil the ending and that, I don't think there's any big. I think the ending's open to a couple different interpretations.
Exactly. I just gave up. Like I just told you a few minutes ago.
So I don't think it's just a like, oh, this is the new Joker now, we're gonna get more movies. I think this is the end of everything with this universe.
Todd Phillips has already said he's not doing any more DC movies.
He's done with DC. I thought this was the end anyway. I think this was, and ultimately, maybe this shouldn't have happened. Maybe you should have just rolled off into the sunset of the big success of the first one. But
yeah, but when you've got Big Daddy WB being like, hey, we could use some more of that money. You got any more ideas for Joker?
I think they were more inclined, Joe, because they didn't get all the spoils from the box office of the
correct
confidence to go into.
They got $1 billion and only made 500 million.
So, ultimately, I would agree. I don't think I would recommend this to people go seeing in theaters, but I do think
it's worth a watch. I will 100% say it's worth a watch.
Yeah. Agreed.
Don't expect it to be what the first one was.
And
the first one was, a lot of people enjoyed the first one. The ending, changed some way of thinking. But at the same time, though, after I've seen it, I saw it twice in theaters. I haven't watched it since.
No, and I've only watched it once in theaters, and I haven't watched it since. So, but
that says something.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it has as much repeated watchability. So,
and there's differences. Like, it is a good movie. It is one that a multiple watch isn't terrible, but it's not action packed. It's not like turn your brain off and just have a fun time like most of DC movies are, other DC movies are, or the MCU.
Somewhere Clay shuddered when you said turn your brain
off. I know. I hope you did.
Now, Joe, we will reconvene for the next movie review in less than a year. July for Superman. I can't wait for that one. I can't believe.
I mean, technically, we'll reconvene for Kucha Commandos.
Yes, but that's we're doing that now with Penguin too. So,
yeah.
Just talking about movie wise,
I'll just talk about DCU, but okay.
It'll be nice to get to that point, Joe. This has been a bit more fun than I had with the film, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, good.
So, listeners, we'll be back next week. Like I said, we won't be live on Friday, but be on the lookout for our review of the next episode of Penguin and catching up on some DC news. Until then, this was our review of Joker 2, Folie Deux. Joe, I will see you next week.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody.
Later, listeners.